Hi, it's Dr. Mike Jones. I'm the Managing Director of Impact Minerals Limited, listed on the Australian Stock Exchange under code IPT.
Good to see you, Dr. Mike Jones. I'm glad you're well. And you've just put out a scoping study. What does it tell us?
So for those Crux listeners who have listened in earlier on in the year, they would have seen that in March this year, we got into a high purity alumina project here in Western Australia. And we've had a very successful year pushing that project forward, both in feasibility study. We're well into a pre-feasibility study now. But yeah, a couple of weeks ago, we put out the scoping study, which is really the first signs of economic life in this project, and really sort of confirmed a lot of what we thought when we first got into the project, that it's going to be an extremely cost-effective producer of HPA. One of, if not probably the lowest cost producer of HPA globally. And so we were very happy with the study. The numbers look, very enticing, and we're all excited and keeping going.
Right, but you're kind of now moving into those sort of either exciting or boring phrase, depending on where you sit in all of this, where you've got to help the market understand the economics of this thing, right? We're sitting around sort of whatever, about 40 million market cap here at the moment, but it's a massive asset in a commodity which is much needed, but people aren't I don't think they're kind of understanding the scope and the scale of the opportunity in front of you. So tell us what you're doing about that one. You kind of, there's an education process needed, isn't there?
There is indeed. Not only about what HPA is used for, but also, the chances of us actually, making a significant contribution to the HPA market as we go ahead. It is a niche market. We've sort of discussed that before, and but it is growing, and it's also, a high margin business. So it's definitely something that's worth chasing. In particular, if you've got low cost producer as we do. Maybe I could just give a quick 2-minute overview on HPA and what it's used for, just so people can sort of come up to speed. Look, one of the principal uses, if you recall, a few years ago, the Samsung phones were exploding. Probably used this analogy before, but the reason for that is that HPA is thermally and chemically inert, and so they use it as the separator between the anode and the cathode in lithium-ion batteries, but also increasingly in other battery architectures, basically to prevent the things exploding. So if the separator is not doing its job, the heat transfers across, and boom, we have these explosions. And obviously, the battery market forecasts to grow, significantly in the next decade. So there's a definite growth market there. And the second one is actually in something as simple as LED light globes, and also LEDs that we have in the OLED and ULED, Samsung, LG, etc. TV screens. Big growth market in both of those markets, and LED in particular in light globes. Recently, I understand that the USA banned incandescent light globes going in, and so all new globes have to go in, as LEDs, and significant amount of HPA in there. There's a lot of other minor things that are very lucrative in the HPA space that you can get into, but really you can't build a business around that. It's about the volume markets in the separator and the LED market, and that's really where we're focusing our work.
Right. Okay. Back to the kind of scoping study. So thanks for helping people understand the what problem it solves. But back to the scoping study, right? You got an NPV of like 1.4 billion Aussie, right? And the capex 250, etc. A good IRR of well over 50%. But it's early days. To go and deliver that and deliver the potential of that, I'm intrigued in terms of what are those steps that you're taking, and and what cash is it going to take, and over what sort of time frame. So in terms of the business development, what are you doing? What are you focused on?
So right now, the key for us is making sure that the metallurgical process that we have for the unique Lake Hope deposit is doing its job on an increasingly larger scale, and that we can produce 4N, that's 99.99% pure alumina at the end of that process. So back in October, we put out the first results of the test work that we've been doing. The process is actually relatively straightforward. People might recall that the deposit itself, Lake Hope, is in the top 2 meters of a salt lake here in Western Australia. And it's really a no-brainer in terms of mining. It's a free digging operation. The intention is to dig up the top metre or two of the lake, stockpile it, and then draw it down over a 3-year period continuously, and then take that off-site for processing. It's a unique set of evaporite minerals which lend themselves to a very straightforward sulfuric acid leach process. Nothing complicated about it. It's 5 stages, but we've been working through the optimization of that entire process. Fairly standard work that you would do in a pre-feasibility study. So far we've completed 3 stages. Out of the 5, the other 2 stages should be done by Christmas, and so we will be in a position then at the start of next quarter to really start run a significant amount of material through that process and have in our hands, plenty of white powder, such as the bag that I'm holding here, which is high purity alumina. And we do like to joke.
I'm saying nothing, Mike. I'm saying nothing. Nothing.
We do like to joke it's the second most expensive powder in Perth, but it is that it's high purity alumina, right there.
Good man.
By the end of next quarter,
Don Jones, well done.
You got to make this. You got to make test work fun and exciting, Matt. And so talking about
absolutely,
powder,
absolutely,
yeah.
Look,
so
let's get serious. It's kind of where I'm just trying to think of financially where you're at. Okay, at the moment, either the market kind of comes back and life is getting, people are throwing money around like for fun, and I get the simplicity of the process that you've outlined and described. It's not complex. That's a plus for sure. But to kind of deliver that scale component and given you sort of the history of where you're from and perhaps the structure and nature of the team, are you looking to get strategic investors in sooner rather than later? Because whatever your market cap suggests, you're a meaningfully advanced project, right?
Yeah.
And you're going to need one, that kind of business development component in terms of access to market and commercial relationships and all of those wonderful things. But you're also going to need some capital to do all of this effectively sort of pilot testing, allow people to test your product, etc. So again, in terms of that building that part of the business, where are you?
That's a great question. If you look at our presentations, we talk about at the end of that, where we're building out our capabilities. And access to markets and finding, burrowing into, the potential customers is a key part of next year's program. Now, to do that, we do need quite a reasonable quantity of material. And so right now we're balancing up, making sure that the process is working before we sort of really knock on the doors so that we can actually say, hey, look, we've got product now. We don't have products in 3 months, and then if we hit God forbid, hit some sort of technical issue, and then we've got to delay everyone. It just doesn't do your credibility, any good there at all. So building out product specification is a huge part of the playing field that we're getting into. So in terms of funding, the work that we're doing on the pre-feasibility and the definitive feasibility study is basically all about test work. It's not actually that expensive when you compare it to, say, feasibility study it's doing on, say, Hemi, De Grey's big 10 million ounce, gold deposit. This has probably got similar value, to in ground, to De Grey. And the feasibility studies on those things cost tens of millions of dollars. We're talking a few millions of dollars here. And I'm pretty confident that I'm going to be able to raise that based on the interest that we've had shown, in this project, as I've done a lot of marketing, this year, just trying to shake the tree. So capabilities, definitely a big area for us next year. And I think a big tick for us will be just getting the first batch of material, say, into a qualification process, not an offtake, but, a qualification, will be the first real indication for us that, hey, people are starting to take us potentially seriously in this, in this space. In terms of the longer picture, when we get to, say, a pilot plant mode where we're producing commercial quantities, which would be profitable on our modelling, would be profitable at, say, 1,000 or 2,000 tonnes per annum production, then we're looking in the sort of the few tens of millions, we think, to sort of build that scale of plant. And then it's a real ramp up, obviously, to get to the big 10,000 tonne a year, which is what the scoping study was based on, and that's the sort of the benchmark that our peers in the business, have been doing. So look, in the short term, not huge amounts of capital over the next, year or two, and then subsequent to that, if we get offtake partners, then obviously there'll be sources of funding, we hope, to build the larger scale plant.
Well, let's look at that qualification process, because that's fascinating. So we look at a lot of the metals commodities feeding into the EV market, say for instance, they are conscious of which strategics and what type of money they bring in, because the North Americans are suggesting that if you kind of tap into the Chinese market, then dollars will not be available to you. All this kind of critical minerals, mineral security is a language which is much used. So as an Aussie company, I guess relations are good with China again, but we've seen what's happened with the graphite market recently in terms of the tap being turned off. We've seen it before with rare earths, with the tap being turned off from China. So how do you view the market? How do you view what type of qualification process you're going to run in terms of where that goes? Is it we're open to everyone and anyone, or are you kind of conscious of those sort of market pressures?
Yeah, no, we're very conscious of the market pressures and friendshoring, in particular. Obviously, a number of Australian companies are already investigating the potential for the IRA funding through from the Biden administration, etc. And we think that's possibly a route that might be open to us in terms of funding. There's obviously gigafactories, although some of them have been cancelled, I'm probably sure as you were, but there is, there are gigafactories proposed, both in particular North America and, throughout Europe. And the incumbent suppliers, the largest proportion actually comes from China. And so there's definite potential there to replace the Chinese, supply of HPA outside of China into, those types of markets. So, it's a big strategic choice to make about, you go down the separator route or the LED route, because they do require, obviously, there's different, characteristics that are required in the end specification. And we will test the market in both of those and see which one looks like it's going to be the more straightforward one to break into. But in terms of batteries, you have to remember, of course, 85% of the world's batteries are made in China. The Chinese battery makers are just light years ahead of anybody in the West, basically, in terms of battery technology. Lots of developments going on in there. Whereas the LED market is more global, in terms of the suppliers and the people who make LEDs, etc. So these are very interesting challenges that that we face in the marketplace over the next 12 to 24 months.
But there are always pressures in your sector. What are some of the assumptions that you're making here? Obviously, you've kind of got a byproduct, which I guess is not necessarily core to the success economically of your project. So I don't necessarily want to sort of tap into that. But what are the kind of the red flags you're saying to your team? Look, we need to nail this aspect of our business to ensure success. What was kind of where you focus? Was it laser focus?
Yeah, it really is on getting to the end, that end product. So as well as the chemical process which produces the bags of white powder, there's then quite a lot of physical alteration of the material that needs to be done in high pressure mills, jet mills, they're called, micronization, to get it to the kind of specification that the particular end users use. And that requires a lot of intelligence between between our metallurgists and product developers and the end user market, making sure that those two mix. And that, of course, then if you make a strategic choice there, that feeds back into the process and the plant that you actually end up going to build. So there's this balance, between the two. And it's always good to point to an example where it's been done very well. And there is one standout in that business, and that's Alpha HPA Limited. Their code is A4N on the Australian Stock Exchange. 4 years ago, they were like us, small junior explorer, came up with a novel extraction process, solvent extraction, to develop HPA, and it's been a 4-year journey for them to tick all of those boxes that you're talking about, going through the qualification, make sure the process was working, and their market cap hit $1 billion, just recently. So if you can get it right in the space, the potential is there, for the market to get the story. But yeah, look, it's taken a lot of marketing and a lot of telling of the story to get it out there.
Right. Okay. But again, just looking forward, because you're kind of moving through the phases quite quickly. You've only recently got this asset on board, so we love the simplicity, we love the scale of it, and we love the kind of low cost development of it. That's great. But you're going to sort of start forward planning some of the things in terms of where do you put a pilot plant, where do you put a processing plant? You're going to have to secure these things. Yeah. The technical ability to kind of, I know you're building the team, but technical abilities that you're going to need to get on board. People are expensive these days because of what's been going on.
Yeah.
Is that how much of your month or the board's month is kind of focused on those sorts of things, that future proofing, as it were?
No, it's as we've gone through this test work and increasingly showing, that this project, has definitely got legs. It's becoming, more and more of the focus for impact, obviously going forward. So talking about the funding and thinking about pilot plants and things like that. So we're spending a lot of time thinking about, where the pilot plant would be built and what funding might be available. So again, just to use Alpha HPA as an example, over the last 12 months, they've secured something in the order of $100 million worth of grants from the state and federal government. That's the state of Queensland, to help, construct significant portions of their plant. And that type of funding, would be available, to ourselves once we get it to particular stages. So in fact, just today we came back from a meeting with one of the government departments that, said, hey, put an application in for grants to help, come to help build. There is a big drive, both at the state and in particular the federal level in Australia, to increase our mineral processing that we do here in Australia, and we think that we've got a very strong chance of tapping into that funding. And talking about bigger licks of capital, one of the initiatives that the federal government did just recently, they've offered $2 billion of cheap loans to critical minerals infrastructure growth. So which includes processing plants and pilot plants and things like that. So it will be a significant portion of our time thinking and actually applying for that type of funding, and it'll be a nice addition, obviously, to standard capital raises, etc., or looking for input or funding from an offtake partner.
Okay, yeah, no, I think it's going to be extremely important. The cost of capital, can make or break some companies. Yeah. And so in terms of that kind of Gantt chart moving forward, in terms of those kind of deliverable date, they used to be called catalysts, but I don't believe that anymore. What are the sort of deliverables that move you and this project forward?
So in terms of this is do say in quarters. So look, this quarter we'll lodge our mining lease application. So we've recently received heritage clearance. So subject to a mining agreement, there are no impediments from the local Naju people to mining there. We've also completed the first pass environmental studies. Again, no red flags there, presently. So from the mining side, mining lease application will go in, and we're sort of ticking a lot of boxes to get that granted, within an 18-month, 2-year sort of time frame. So again, accelerating everything. Next quarter, we'll be producing significant amounts of the HPA from our optimised process, and really then shaking the tree to get the qualification, meet the customers and start to get material into qualification. And I would hope by mid-year next year that we should have started that track, started on that track. That will also be the time when the pre-feasibility study, quarter 2, quarter 3, will be coming to an end, and that's a big decision point for us in terms of our earn-in agreements. So the completion of the pre-feasibility study, we can earn 80% of the project and tick that off, and then move to the next stage of definitive feasibility study, which will roll off into 2025. But the ultimate aim is to get into modest scale, not the full scale production, in that sort of 2026 time frame. And to do that, there's a lot of work that has to be done, and a lot of things have got to fall into place. But what I can say is that I always wanted to build a mine, Matthew, and now we're doing it. It's an incredible challenge for me personally, but I'm absolutely loving it. It's a whole new set of skills that I've got to learn. Not just in terms of all of the permitting, but because it's HPA, we've got this added complexity of finding end users into there. So. Yeah, it's a fascinating and rewarding journey.
Okay, and just one final one. Obviously, when you kind of move to this stage of development of project and advancing through the phases, as it were, the share register becomes really, really important to you. I know you're out there, selling the project, but we've talked so far about funding or grants and that sort of thing. But the kind of capital markets is going to be really important for you. Retail is a big portion of who you are and what you are and the heritage of where you've been. With the institutional conversations, you may still be too small for them, but you've got to start the process of telling the story. I mean, how is that working for you at the moment?
Yeah, no, I've done a lot of marketing this year. So in particular, one-to-one formats, not specifically the one-to-one group, but and they've actually been quite well attended by Australian institutions. And having been selling the exploration dream for so long, it's interesting to see that there's palpable difference in interest in what we're doing. Obviously there's the uniqueness of the project is sort of attractive, but when we start to talk to the institutions, about, oh, look, this is our operating costs, these are our capexes, you can see that the lights are sort of turning on a little bit. Oh, there could be something in this in this project. So it's actually been quite significant. I've done a few presentations to institutional brokers leading into the institutions as well. Early days, and we understand where we sit in terms of the market cap threshold. But I'm pretty confident that if we can just keep the retail interest, building that market cap, ticking the boxes off, that we will attract some significant funding, from bigger groups as we move forward. So yeah, exciting times.
Exciting times indeed, Mike. Thanks very much for today. Bye.
Not a problem.